Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Let's be real. Dealing with tangled cords can make it harder to do your hair. Break free with the new Unbound Cordless Auto Curler from Conair. Get the curls and waves you want, anytime, anywhere. It's designed to let you experience the power and freedom of beauty in motion. No cords to hold you back. You get your curls and waves your way. Unplug and be unbound. Loose curls, tight curls, beachy waves. The Unbound Cordless Auto Curler makes it easy to get the looks you love. Love your look. Live unbound. Available at conair.com and search Unbound.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt, als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the German football podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn. This week, we've got a very exciting podcast covering the DFB Pokal. Yes, we've seen some big guys crash out and others struggle badly. Then we're going to move on and talk about the Bundesliga as it's about to come upon us this weekend. Yes, it's back. We'll be talking about who the possible champions will be, who will maybe be in the top four, the middle of the pack, and then, unfortunately, the relegation battle. After that, we'll talk a little bit about tactics. Yes, we've got a very special guest on with us. And yeah, I feel that that's an area we'll need to touch on as that's his expertise. Then we'll maybe even do our league predictions, the three of us. Yep, how wrong we'll be. Anyway, joining me, as always, is Veth. Manu, how are you?
Yeah, I feel like I live on Dune these days, Bryce. I don't know if you haven't seen it in the news. I'm in Canada at the moment, one of my two homes, and BC fires have blanketed the entire province with a thick layer of smoke. So we're all stuck inside, looking outside, and it looks like Dune out there. I'll post an update tomorrow to let you know how it looks like. But yeah, it's not happy times. I feel like I'm in a campfire nonstop.
Hi, well, I suppose you look a little bit like Sting.
I knew that was coming.
Anyway, I hope you're okay over there. Anyway, just stay indoors watching football and writing about football. That's what we enjoy anyway. But Chris Williams can't be with us this week, unfortunately. But we've brought in quite the replacement. Welcoming back is Constantin Eckner. Constantin, thank you very much for coming back onto the podcast. For anyone that's tuned in since you were last on, do you fancy just explaining what exactly you do?
Yeah, so first off, guys, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be with you again. First and foremost, I'm the editor of Spielverlagerung.com. I think more or less well-known website that's dedicated to football tactics and player scouting, coaching stuff, all the things that are a bit nerdy but also interesting. And I guess since our readership is growing, I guess a lot of people enjoy what we are doing and enjoy that take on the game. So yeah, that's about me. I'm also working for some other outlets and German media, broadcasters, but in terms of football, that's basically my mainstay. So.
Very good. Yes, and I must say it's very interesting stuff that you cover as well. I think we're all a little bit nerdy deep down inside, aren't we, when it comes to our football? Everyone seems to enjoy stats these days and tactics as the game gets more and more interesting, it seems, every year. But what is interesting is the sheer amount of goals that we've seen this weekend in the DFB Pokal as German football truly did return. But some sides, some of the big sides, didn't quite get it their way. Manu, we've seen the holders drop out. Eintracht Frankfurt. What exactly went on here?
Yeah, this is the earliest a cup holder has gone out in quite some time, right, Constantin? This is almost a new record. And I think this one is an interesting story by itself because it kind of underlines that there's still some issues at Frankfurt. At the same time, that first round of the cup, we've seen a lot of big sides struggle. I mean, we'll touch on one, the game that just ended before we went on here. But Bayern even only managed a 1-0 victory over Drochtersen Asel, a fourth division team. So it kind of just shows, the Bundesliga is only kicking off next weekend. These fourth and third and second division teams, they, for the most part, have been playing for the entire month already. And I think that's really the main source for some of the upsets. At the same time, Frankfurt have to beat a team like Ulm and advance. We had this down as almost like another preparation match for Frankfurt last week when we spoke on the podcast. So this is a little embarrassing. Maybe a lot of embarrassment, actually.
Yeah, a bit of a shock, really. Constantin, I mean, surely you must have seen it as a bit of a shock as well. I mean, what exactly happened? Do you think it's just a matter of, as Manu slightly touched on there, that the teams just haven't really got up and running yet? A little bit heavy-legged, maybe, and maybe just a little bit slower than what they would be if they played this game in 2 or 3 months' time.
Yeah, obviously, if they would have played it in November or so, usually you get a better performance out of these Bundesliga teams. Although I have to say sometimes these cup matches early on, they have a certain dynamic, especially if a Bundesliga side that will probably struggle a bit, will maybe battle relegation, plays against, let's say, a third division side that's playing for promotion. So there's a different kind of momentum behind it. On Monday, Freiburg only edged out a victory at Cottbus after penalty shootout. And actually, I expected that it would be a close game because Freiburg will battle relegation this season, while Cottbus might go up into the second Bundesliga. So you've got a different kind of dynamic there. The one team is really get used to scoring, being a bit more dominant possession, having kind of the attacking flow going for them, while the other team is the Bundesliga team is more about defending and keeping maybe a goalless draw, and then they have to go or travel to some of these pretty tricky, edgy sides from the third or fourth division, and then they have to play different kind of football game, and that's hard for some of them. But in terms of Frankfurt especially, I guess a new coach, lost a couple of players, didn't really replace them, I think, and will be a tough season for them in general. And then they have a tricky match at Ulm and go out. It's not unheard of. Something like that has happened before, and I think it might be a sign that Frankfurt will really struggle in their first season after Niko Kovac.
A transitional year, I think, for them. I mean, they signed Kostic today. A bad omen because he's got relegated with his 2 previous clubs, Stuttgart and Hamburg, but at the same time, I actually think that's a good signing for them, and I think they will have to have some more work to be done until the end of the transfer window, and I think that game showed it.
Yeah, but it's always tricky, right? I mean, I remember last year, Borussia Dortmund was supposed to be a transitional year under Peter Bosz. Then you fail to win for an entire month or more, and then the coach gets sacked, and the term transitional year is thrown out the window. And if Frankfurt gets really into deep water and they struggle to get points and will be in the relegation battle, then I think the front office might get a bit upset and maybe get rid of the coach and get a new one. So I don't know if you can have a transitional year if you're a club like Frankfurt, because it's always tricky for them. It's always tough for them because they lose a couple of players. Also, Ante Rebic, I don't think he will have another year like he had last year. It's just, it was a bit overperforming there. If you watch the World Cup, the last few matches, you could see that maybe he overperformed a bit before that, and he will get back to normal. And you lose Kevin Prince Boateng, pretty important player, and Mascarell hasn't played that much, but still. So, and Marius Wolf. So, it can be really tough for them, and I don't think you can have a transitional year. Same with other teams. Usually don't work that way. I mean, if you don't pay attention, then you're in the second Bundesliga.
I think it's a real test for Frankfurt, this, because for a long time under Kovac and Bobic, the leadership under Kovac and Bobic was very harmonious, and the club has very much changed from being the diva of the Bundesliga to almost a sea of harmony. And I think this is a real test for them now, the next upcoming weeks, whether they can actually sustain that. I think Hütter is a very good coach. I mean, what he did at Young Boys Bern, a very similar club, of course, at Swiss level than Frankfurt, right? And he had a lot of success there, but it took him some time to get that system working. So I think this is a real good test for Frankfurt, not just for the players on the field, but also for the front office, etc.
Yeah, what you mentioned, I agree. Frankfurt was one of the divas of the Bundesliga, besides Hamburg and Cologne. And both Frankfurt and Cologne transitioned, they became more stable. Yeah. Because of the manager, because of the head coach, because the front office trusted the people standing on the sideline and the people in charge of all things football. But look at Cologne last season. They got into trouble, and then these certain kind of mechanisms get rolling again, and then you can see that there's some dispute between the coach and the manager, and the coach and the chairman, or something like that. What happened at Cologne with Stöger. And for years they talked about how Stöger transitioned the club, and under Stöger that's a new club, and it's not the diva or one of the divas of the Bundesliga. But well, after all, if you get into a relegation battle, things change very quickly again. And that could happen to Frankfurt as well, because Frankfurt and Cologne, a little bit similar.
At the same time, though, one big difference: Stöger, they should have probably switched the coach when they reached that the Europa League, right? Because they were ready to make that switch. But Frankfurt have done that. I mean, Kovac has gone to Bayern, and they have brought in a new coach who will bring in a new philosophy. So maybe that was exactly what they needed now. I mean, again, the cup game, we could be sitting here 2 weeks from now, like, what cup game? Who cares, right? So I think we have to take this all with a little bit of a grain of salt, don't we?
Well, but they got also steamrolled by Bayern in the Super Cup.
True.
And it wasn't really
Bayern
a great
is not the
performance
same
by
Bayern that they used to be.
Well, but it wasn't really a great performance by Bayern, actually.
Yeah,
it was average, but they got steamrolled. In the match they took seriously. I mean, I know Super Cup, it's a bit of a tricky match. I mean, if you watch Barcelona against Sevilla and these kind of Super Cup matches, but on the other end, they took it seriously. And they got blasted. They had no chance at all after the first or second goal. And they broke down, and that's kind of scary. Of course, it doesn't mean they will be relegated, but it could mean it will be a really tough season. And I'm intrigued. I will see if Bobic and people in charge will really stay calm and trust Hütter, or if Hütter will just be a casualty after all and will be gone by December.
Yeah, interesting one to follow.
Manu, is there anything that we can possibly say about Ulm, who managed to put out Eintracht? Who exactly are Ulm? I mean, there's going to be a lot of listeners out there going, I've never even heard of this side. Is there anything interesting that you can tell us about them?
They used to be in the Bundesliga, and people might remember Ralf Rangnick, the current sporting director and head coach of Leipzig. That was his first gig back in Constantin 1998. Is that right?
1998, yeah. They got promoted to Bundesliga in 1998.
And that was basically, remember the TV show when he went on and on the ZDF Sports Studio and explained the German public how 4-4-2 works, 4 in the back, because no one knew. We were still playing Libero at the time. So that's all, that was Rangnick's first pet project, I guess, before Hoffenheim and before Leipzig. And they were playing in the Bundesliga for 1 year, got promoted with Rangnick, but Rangnick then actually left for Stuttgart. After that 1 year, they were a little bit in trouble, and I think they were all the way down in the 6th division. They're now in the 4th division, so, a little bit of a blast from the past, I would say, with Ulm taking out Frankfurt.
Yeah, so actually what happened was they got relegated from the Bundesliga in 2000, and they were down in the 5th division or 6th division. It's a little bit tricky because these division changes all the time, but they were down within a year because they were insolvent. So that was kind of a fall. with a downfall within a 2 or 3 year span back then, and they haven't really recovered from that because it's tough to recover from something like that.
But Rangnick's original laboratory, keep that in mind. It's a really neat backstory. That's where it all started. And when German football finally got rid of the libero.
Wow, so definitely interesting things to point out about Ulm. I was wondering whether you would say, no, not really. But there was plenty. But guys, Frankfurt weren't the only side to drop out from the Bundesliga. We also seen Stuttgart drop out to the hands of Hansa Rostock. I mean, this is also a bit of a shock, but do you expect it's going to be a difficult year for Stuttgart, Constantin? I mean, they were the promoter side last year and did very well by all accounts. Can you see them doing as well this year? Or do you think them getting knocked out of the cup might actually help them focus on the league, maybe?
Well, that's a tricky one, actually, because I think squad-wise, or if you just take the squad of Stuttgart, they are above average. They are top 8, top 7 club, I think, but their coach isn't. So you don't know how much worth a squad like that is if you got a coach like Korkut who hasn't really proven that he can manage a side up to 7 or 6 or something like that. He's certainly capable of managing a club to 14th or 15th, but that's not what Stuttgart wants, especially with, it's a couple of signings and last year of Pavard at the club. You don't know what with Askar Bar happens in the near future. So, they want to use these players for as long as they have them. I could see Stuttgart really making a run for the Europa League place. But I could also see them really having trouble because of Korkut. But if he gets his players running and, doesn't interfere too much, basically does what he did at the end of last season, because it worked kind of well, but Ginczek is gone, so he has to mix up things again. I could see Stuttgart really making a run and, giving even Leipzig or a few other clubs. We will come to league table predictions later, but give Leipzig or other clubs a run for their money. And they lost to Rostock. Same dynamic. Rostock is a bit of is ambitious in the third league. Only 10th right now, but still. And they played at home. Pretty good crowd there. That's specific dynamic. They came with confidence, and Stuttgart wasn't really warmed up, and things like that happen, I guess.
Yeah, well, they certainly did well to knock out their as being the underdogs, what we say. But other teams that overperformed as well, you would say, over the weekend, included Bayern's game, where, yes, they had 28 shots to 3, but only won 1-0, and with quite a few players that you would imagine to start in that starting 11 come this weekend. Manu, what exactly does this say? Is there anything that we could take from it? And possibly say that Kovac may have a few difficulties this season, or should we not read into this game too much?
Yeah, I mean, Constantin is quite right. Bayern, we spoke off-pod that Bayern didn't do so well in the Super Cup, right? Despite winning that game handily. And I think there's going to be a lot of issues with this Bayern side. A 1-0 win against the 4th division side in the cup doesn't bode well for a season. I think there's a lot of work ahead for Kovac, and when they're going to play against some of the bigger teams, it's going to be a struggle. I think Ribéry and Robben really showing the age. Lewandowski fully committed still. I mean, he's renewed his contract with Zahavi, the Israeli super agent who likes to transfer players away from big clubs. So there's a lot of question marks. There's still a question marks whether Thiago is actually going to stay. Boateng is still in the shopping window because Bayern want to spend big time next year on new players, so they're trying to free up as many assets as possible. I'm not sure. We'll see. That first match against Hoffenheim is going to be a big one for them. But at the same time, the cup win, and we should probably talk about Dortmund as well, because I saw a Bayern account making fun of Dortmund's result. against Fürth, 2-1 victory in overtime. You know, playing against a second division side that has done very well this year, in bringing in quite a lot of good players, and is a lot more difficult, I think, than what Bayern faced in Drochters and Basel in the first leg of the first round of the Pokal.
Yeah, most certainly. I think a few of the big sides are going to experience a few issues, difficulties this season, and yeah, I feel that we do need to talk about Borussia Dortmund. Constantin, we've seen tonight them just about scrape by in extra time with a 2-1 victory. Talk about transitional years. I mean, it's probably going to be the case for Dortmund as well, isn't it?
Actually, I don't think so.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I mean, probably you're right, and I'm wrong. I don't know, because I see Dortmund still after one match against Fürth is one, as Manu mentioned, one of the better sides of the second Bundesliga right now. So I mean, it was a team you have to take seriously. It's not some kind of cannon fodder. But I see Dortmund as one of the two favorites for the domestic championship, for the German championship right now. I think they have a few issues in terms of the center forward position, because they only have Philipp and Royce played against Fürth, so there is a bit of an issue there. They don't have the kind of traditional center forward right now. They still looking for one. That's why there are rumors out there, Origi or maybe Paco Alcacer. There are some rumors out there because they want one traditional center forward, because Alexander Isak doesn't really work that well right now. It's just working with him. He might be someone have to go out on loan and pick up some playing time somewhere else. But other than that, I think Dortmund overall, they will do very well defensively on the Favre. They have done already in the preseason. They will do well in transition because they have all these great players with Götze, Royce, and so on, who just naturally that gets them. They can really do well in transition attacks. And if you have a Favre-like pressing system, that's what you can do. You have all these turnovers, these interceptions, and then you can go from there. They might struggle a bit in terms of build-up, but they have the right tools there. Dahoud, Witzel, the center backs, the two, Akanji and Diallo, they are really good ball-playing center backs. So it's more about tactics, mechanisms, finding the right place you have to set up. And if they find a center forward, or if they get Philipp just in the condition to be the center forward they need, then I think they can do really well in this year, and far better than the past 2 years. Because Bayern aren't that intimidating this year. I don't think so, at least. So it isn't like Dortmund is like on top of the world again, but it's more. It might be a slower race to the championship this year, and that's why. I rate Dortmund really highly. And the match at Fürth, Fürth did better than I expected them, actually. And since Dortmund didn't score early, Fürth had the chance to score relatively late. But that's Dortmund. They can bring in someone like Axel Witzel and after 7 minutes or so, 17 minutes, and then he scores. So that's also something you have to take into account. Dortmund's bench is pretty good, and they have a lot of great midfielders, and all are technically gifted. No, there's no Gonzalo Castro anymore. There's still Sebastian Rode, but he's basically only a warm body, not more like that. And you got all these gifted players. That's what Dortmund is all about right now. And two really athletic center backs. So I mean, they got that right. They can get the center forward thing going. Then I think they can really make a run.
Witzel, instant impact today. That's exactly why they signed him. To provide that kind of leadership and to come in. That was a late goal, to get that win. But I think that's basically why you sign players like that, right? I mean, Witzel, yes, he's there to have that impact in midfield. But when you look at the kind of players, and when you look at one of the stats companies that I like to follow is Goal Impact, right? And they right away released a tweet after Witsel was signed as like, this is the impact player that you need as a big club. And, he's on the pitch for 20 minutes. He's already earned back some of his transfer money. I think that's exactly the kind of players that we're missing at times last year. And the center forward thing is an issue. I think we saw some of that today, although Philip didn't start, right? I'd be curious to see how he does when he actually gets the full playing time. I think that they need to bring in someone. I don't think it needs to be Origi or Paco Alcácer, right, from Barcelona. He was the name that was mentioned today. I think they need someone who is a bit of more of a playing forward, someone basically a young Miroslav Klose, I think, is what they are looking for, who they need right now. But I think those are things that can be addressed. As for this championship race, I'm really curious about that one. I guess that kind of transitions us to the next topic. But Constantin, you bring it up. It will be a lot slower race. I reckon that it will be a very slow race to the top this year. And when I made my league table prediction, we'll have to talk about that later. I had a really hard time putting a team on the number one. I mean, the easiest one would be to just say, it's going to be Bayern again. But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, because the top four is so deep this year.
Well, I think you're right, Manuel. I think that's what we have to get onto now. We have to talk about the coming season. And I suppose, Constantin, you mentioned that you think it's going to be much closer this year, but do you actually think that somebody is going to win the league, but Bayern Munich?
Yeah, I actually think that Dortmund will win the league. Yeah, that's basically what I think right now. It comes down to things. It's more or less, is Bayern not strong enough to win the league? So Dortmund will pick up basically the championship. It's more like that, I think, because Dortmund is stronger than last year. Is not as strong as they should be to beat like Bayern from 2 or 3 years ago. But they are stronger, I think. Favre has the magic to at least stabilize a team, to get them on track and keep them there. What Bosch didn't do last season, basically. And also what Tuchel sometimes struggles to do, especially in the second year, he didn't really do that. Had a few issues there. Favre can do that. So they will get points, and frequently, repeatedly, they will lose not that many matches, as we have seen when Favre coached Gladbach. He's someone who suffers only a few defeats over the course of the season if everything goes well. And Bayern, it comes down to two things. First, Kovac, I'm not sold on him as a tactical mind. I think he has authority, charisma. The locker room follows him. Still, you need more than that. Carlo Ancelotti learned that, by the way, when he came in after Pep Guardiola. And you need more than that, because Bayern Munich, they will be forced to make adjustments against a lot of teams, because still most teams will sit deep, will wait, will try to park the bus. So just playing the same system, the same things over and over again, don't bring you far enough. Especially because this year, Bayern is still, on the individual level, they are still above everyone else, by a mile. At least, outside of Dortmund, maybe. But the squad is thinner. They had a World Cup, a disappointing one for some, a longer one for others. And also, there has to be a decline. Sometime in the future, there has to be a decline of Ribéry happen. That's why they are collecting all this money. That's why they are saving all this money, because they are looking for the big signing next summer, or for one or two. They are looking for the 100 million, 120 million signing, the Coutinhos and Mbappés of the world. Because they know, we can't play with Ribéry and Robben for the next 10 years. They have Kingsley Coman, who can replace one of the two, but they need another one. They need a big one. They need a big fish, and that's why they are saving so much money. Because especially Robben has already declined athletically. He's not as quick as he was a couple of years ago. He's slower. You see that he doesn't win as many dribbles, as many duels as he won in the past, 2-3 years ago. You see, so the decline has already set in. With Ribéry, it's a bit different. I think he has more longevity, obviously,
but Constantin, his numbers are down too.
Ribéry's numbers that's what I just wanted to say.
Yeah.
He looks I think he looks better than Robben right now because he has more tools in terms of dribbles. He can do more. He's a bit more of a trickster. But still, he will also have issues going forward. And I mean, sometimes these declines happen like fast. And then if they hit, if the age curve hits you, then they hit it hard. And then I don't know what they are doing because they are still using Ribéry. That's like they set up Robben and Ribéry. They're all the plays they are setting up. It's getting involved, Robben and Ribéry. That's why Kimmich is so important on the right side. That's why Alaba is and Thiago are so important on the left side. And Müller is so important on the right. That's why they are trying to get their two wingers involved and then, get something going. If that doesn't work, then everything is tied to Robert Lewandowski. So that's it. That's like, they don't have really a bench. Who's the replacement for Lewandowski? Sandro Wagner. Who's the replacement for Robben if Kingsley Coman replaces Ribéry? No one. So
Gnabry.
That's Gnabry, yeah. All right, okay. Yeah, but you see, I mean, I over-dramatize a little bit here, but it's also Süle, Boateng, and Hummels. They have 3 center backs. They have 1 full back on the bench. It's kind of. It reminds me a little bit of back in the day when Pep Guardiola had only 15, 16 players at Barca. And they had injury issues, and then suddenly Thiago Motta played center back. So I don't know if you want it.
Yeah, but actually you bring up a few interesting things here. I mean, I might want to add that I do think that Gnabry is going to be a great addition. I do think that Alphonso Davies, the young Canadian, will play a major role. I do also think that they will sign someone really big next summer. I mean, they're quite open about this. I do want to add though that Boateng is in trouble. And this is why no one is buying him, by the way, because, his big thigh muscle is gone. There is maybe a maximum of 20 games left in his body right now at a high level. That's not enough to win the Champions League and the Bundesliga. So that's a big problem for them. That's why they're so desperate on cashing in on him, right? So that's a really interesting issue for them. And I think, you're quite right that there is a weird transition. For me, they have almost missed that boat where they would have said, and I think they should have done this maybe a year or so ago. Well, sorry, Rob and Rip, but, you're just not cutting the grade anymore. We have to move on. And for some odd reason, they didn't do that. They should have done that, but they didn't. And I think that was a real big mistake. And signing someone like Leon Goretzka, who I think is a fantastic player, is great, but in the current system, because the way you described it, Constantin, you're quite right, at 4-3-3, right? Or 4-2-3-1 if you put Müller behind Lewandowski.
Do you love watching live TV but are tired of your huge cable bill? Sling TV has the same top cable channels for as little as half the price, so you can save hundreds of dollars while still watching your favorite sports, news, reality TV, and more. Ditch cable and get Sling's total live streaming solution with free local channels. Setup and installation are included. Make the smart choice and switch to Sling TV. Get the best of cable for the best price. Learn more at sling.com/cutcable. That's sling.com/cutcable. Setup and installation included with $49 down and $20 a month for 12 months. Restrictions apply.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Is not set up for someone like Goretzka. I just don't see room for him in that squad right now. I mean,
yeah, he will probably challenge Müller for a spot, but won't get it. So.
Why? Where? I mean, you look at the World Cup, and basically this is the exact same issues that the Germany team had. Unless they change the tactical system, which Germany should have done, right? They should have gone 3-5-2. there's no room for Goretzka. So will Kovac transition the squad away from that typical setup to 3-5-2? But what happens if Boateng is injured? And what are you going to do to Robbery? Are you just going to bench them? They're not going to really fit that system either. But they signed Goretzka, they signed Gnabry, Koman, all these players that would probably be a better fit in that other system. So I see a lot of issues there.
Well, guys, do you both agree that it's going to be a Dortmund, Bayern Munich 1-2?
No.
Then we say
I don't.
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, this will get interesting then, because we want to talk about not just the champions, but the contenders and also the top four, I think. So Manu, the floor is yours.
I'm smelling a big return of the early 2000s when there was 3 or 4 teams challenging for the title.
I hope you're right.
And you guys are going to start laughing. I'm going to throw Bayern in there as a potential championship winner. And Hoffenheim as well. I think Julian Nagelsmann, his aggressive statement saying we are our maximum is winning the title, so that's what we're going for. I haven't heard a Bundesliga coach say that in a long time. And I think Hoffenheim have managed to keep the players together, and they have a lot of depth up front. And keeping Vogt as well as a defender, I think that was some very astute business. Of course, they're playing Champions League, but I think they learned quite a lot from the Europa League last year. Bayer didn't lose any players. In fact, they are currently debating whether or not to sell Benjamin Henrichs, but don't really seem to care. Bailey for a new contract. I hear that Bayer, the company that owns the club or partly owns the club, is starting to pour in a little bit more money. And signing Paulinho was a very good piece of business for them. So here's a club that hasn't lost any stars. Yes, they lost Bernd Leno, but I don't know if he will make such a big difference.
Stars.
Yeah, stars, exactly. I don't think that's going to be a huge loss for them. I think they can challenge for the title. And look, all we need is Hoffenheim, Bayer Leverkusen, Dortmund, and then of course Dortmund, Leipzig and Schalke to take points off, not even all 3 points, but 2 points off Bayern. And then already you have a closer race. So I'm thinking all these teams are going to potentially challenge. And that will make for a lot more competitive league. It will also make it very difficult to say who's going to actually finish in the top 4, or even in the top 6, because I see 6 teams in the top 6 that I could place anywhere in that top 6 at the moment. But I think there's a lot more competitiveness in that league at the moment. There's a lot of clubs saying, okay, look, this Bayern side, we're not going to the Allianz Arena and deliver 3 points. We can go there and maybe pick up a point or maybe all 3. And that's a huge difference from what we've seen the last few years.
Yeah, exciting times. I think, I agree completely with a few the things that you've said on the top 4, and I think you'll find that out as we come to the end of the show and we talk about our predictions. But
just one point on I want to mention about Hoffenheim. I mean, I agree with Leverkusen. I think Paulinho, they signed Paulinho, one of the next 60-70 million transfers going to England or Spain, or probably England. But about Hoffenheim, I think they could make a run. Problem is Lukas Rupp, Karen Demirbay, Amiri, and Geiger are all out for the next couple of months. So
it's Nagelsmann, Constantin.
Still, they don't have really a midfield, and he can work around some things, but he can't work around losing his entire creativity department, and he lost it. He lost all 3 playmakers, so he now has to deal with Bittencourt as one of his center midfielders. I mean, that can work out against some, but I don't think that it will work for the next until the end of November also. So there will be. That's why I was surprised by his aggressive statements, by the way, because if you lose all your players you need in the midfield, and I mean he needs them, that's kind of hard to swallow, right?
Yeah, but I don't think Hoffenheim are done yet when it comes to the business end of things. So I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not worried about that at all. I think that Nagelsmann has in the past been able to surprise us and reinvent players that we didn't think can play a role. And I think he's going to be just fine. I mean, the big test for them, match day 1, Constantin, is going to be against Bayern. I think that's going to give us a real good indication, of where they're going to go. But the thing is, and I think a lot of teams in the Bundesliga and German teams in general seem to lack this. And Hoffenheim is one of the few that don't have those problems, is strikers. I mean, they can field 4 strikers if they want to. and with Joel Eaton, they brought one back who I think has quite a good future ahead of him as well. So I don't know. It's not something that really worries me at the moment. Of course, they might get hammered 4-0 in Munich on match day 1, and then I'll be sitting here looking like an idiot, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, Manu, what about Schalke? Are we ruling them out of a possible top 4 finish?
I am. I'm not sure Domenico Tedesco can change his ways. He will need to play a lot more creative football next season. I'm not sure he can do that. And this is actually something I'm really curious to hear your opinion about, Constantin, because do you think he can reinvent himself?
I don't know if he has to reinvent himself, but what he certainly has to do is kind of further develop position style of his team, because last year was mostly, especially early on, and then in some phases of the season later on, was all about defending and getting these long counterattacks going, which can of course work, and it worked quite well last year. Problem is they lost Max Meyer, so I'm kind of intrigued to see how they will place him, because Bentaleb, good player, not the kind of playmaker you need in the number 6 role. They signed Mascarell, they signed Suat Serda, so 2 interesting players. I'm just intrigued to see how he will manage to replace Max Meyer, because Max Meyer was pivotal to the last year's system. And if you got one of these, hybrid playmakers, hybrid between holding midfielder and playmaker, if you got one of these guys really established in the number 6 role, then you can play 2 attacking midfielders. And I think he needs to play 2 attacking midfielders to get more presence up or in higher zones, to get this possession football or style football going. And because Tedesco, that is what he has to do. But in the past last year and the year before, when he coached Erzgebirge Aue, it was mostly about defending and these counter attacks. So it will be interesting to see. But yeah, you're right. There needs to be the next step made. And I don't know if he can. If he doesn't do the next step, I still see Schalke finishing 4th or 5th. The squad is kind of well balanced, and overall they have enough players to do that. And also I don't know why, but Schalke isn't like out of their mind anymore like they were a few years ago, where just there was trouble all the time and there was crisis all the time and there were negative headlines all the time. I don't see that anymore. I think they have calmed down because of last season. They have seen, okay, if we have given kind of a no-name the job, and we just let him do his job, and that worked very well. And they didn't spend too much money. This summer they sold Kehrer, which is of course not great to sell Kehrer, but it was, they saw it coming. If you look at who his agent was, who the agent of Meyer is, you can kind of see things like that coming these days with Schalke. But yeah, after all, they signed Sané and the midfielders I mentioned, and Mark Uth from Hoffenheim. So they did well, and they didn't spend too much money. So they aren't in immediate crisis mode again. Like in some years, they spent so much money during the summer, like Wolfsburg, and then they lost a few matches, and was crisis right away. And that's not how that might be next season, even though they might have a bit of a bumpy start or so. Have a few tough matches early on, including Gladbach, including away match at Gladbach and at home against Bayern. So that's, of course, can be a bumpy start, but yeah, well, I don't feel for it.
Guys, I suppose that means before we talk about the likes of a relegation battle, who's going to be thereabouts, just outside the top 4. I mean, Manu, we haven't spoken about RB Leipzig yet. Eintracht Frankfurt, we've touched on a little bit of being a bit of a transitional year, but then you've got Gladbach, Stuttgart, you've got Hertha. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, who do you see having a good year?
Yeah, I think we mentioned Frankfurt quite a bit already, same with Stuttgart. Gladbach, no one's talking very much about them. I'm really curious to see if Hacking is for me coach that really has to show it this year, otherwise he might be gone. Stuttgart, we mentioned him. Werder Bremen is an interesting one for sure. I think that they could maybe challenge for a 7th or 8th spot. Leipzig is for me a candidate for the top 4. I'm not sure if they're going to make it, but they're definitely a candidate. But yeah, I don't really, for me, this top 6 is quite cemented at the moment, and I can't really see anyone breaking into that. And for me, that top 6 is Schalke, Leipzig, Hoffe, Bayern, Dortmund, and Leverkusen, not necessarily in that order, but that's for me, that's the top 6, and it's very much cemented for me next year.
Constantin, out of the sides that we've mentioned just in the last few moments, is there anyone there that you can really see having a fantastic season? Anyone you'd like to draw our eyes to?
Yeah. While I see Leipzig, speaking of transitional year, Leipzig really has a transitional year. Already signed Nagelsmann, so they have set up things for the future. I don't see them having a good year. Meanwhile, Werder Bremen and Wolfsburg are the 2 teams I would point to when it comes to maybe surprises and having great years. I think Wolfsburg will do well for them. Bruno Labbadia, if you look at his track record, typical 6th, 7th place coach. So I could see him doing that. He won't challenge for a title or something. No, nowhere near that. But he's like the kind of guy you get, and then you play Europa League next year. And Werder Bremen, signed Davy Klaassen. I'm sold on Kofeld. And I think they have a new style of attacking football. I like that. It's a bit different than most of the other teams. In the midfield of the Bundesliga, so I think Werder Bremen could do quite well. While Gladbach also, I think they will have issues because of hacking and because they don't really have center backs, right? Yeah. I mean, Vedi is injured, and now they play with Janschke and Matthias Ginter. Congratulations, that's not what you need to do anything other than maybe 10th, 9th, 8th in the Bundesliga.
And Constantin, then I'm going to ask you the next question then. Who's going down this season? I mean, who do you have maybe down on your bit of paper there that isn't going to make it another year in the Bundesliga?
Oh, I think Hannover. They lost Harnik, they lost Sané. Didn't do well in the transfer market, in my opinion. I think I predicted last year that they would go down immediately after going up. They had a great start, kind of picked up the points they needed because then, basically reality hit in and they got back to normal and played bad. So the points they picked up early on kind of saved them. I mean, not many talked about that, but they only finished 13th with kind of a great start. I mean, being up there and in the Champions League spots. So I think they will go down, and also then it will be kind of close in my opinion, between Freiburg and Nürnberg. Nürnberg, because they basically are a second Bundesliga side. It's they come as close as it gets of playing in the Bundesliga and being a second Bundesliga side. And Freiburg, because I kind of see them. It's not like that could be the year they will be going down again. Then being promoted a year or two later. That's kind of their thing. I guess they have a balanced squad, but sometimes a balanced squad doesn't work in your favor. They don't have any difference makers. They lost to Yunchi, and I think even Streich. I mean, great coach. All things considered, but sometimes, his dictionary is limited, and I think he could get in deep waters this season with Freiburg. So it will be kind of close between these 3 teams. But at Nuremberg is really I think the first call, because they don't really have a Bundesliga team. So it would be a situation where maybe they survive one season, but I don't even see that happening.
I disagree with Nuremberg completely. I think that I guess I have to stick it up for my fellow Bavarians, Franconians. Place of the most famous bratwurst.
They are not Bavarians.
No.
Myself, they are not Bavarians.
They are part of the Freistaat Bayern, okay, Constantin.
All right,
Let's set the borders here correctly. No, but in all seriousness, I do think that they are going to be fine. Kölner plays a wonderful style of football that I think will suit this league better than the second division, in all honesty. You know, that the quick passing style of football. And I think that they're going to be, of course they're going to did not finish the top half of the table and they're going to still finish in that relegation zone, but I don't think they're going to get relegated. For me, I'm more worried about Düsseldorf, because I went to a couple of the games last year and I did not see, a Bundesliga side when I watched them play, at all. I just thought that they were boring, stale. I can't see them survive. I'm 100% in agreement with Hannover. I think that they're in big trouble because of everything else that's going on, not just on the field, but also off the pitch, right? With the 50+1, the decision whether or not the club is going to be, handed over to Kind or not, the fact that the ultras are boycotting a lot of the games. I think sooner or later that will spill over into bad results. And when that spills over into bad results, then that's a time bomb ticking. And I think that could really cause some trouble. And, also my favorite guy is Augsburg. I think that they could be in trouble as well this year.
Oh, there's a surprise.
Just one last word on Nuremberg. It's just bad that, the best Nuremberg players, play for Schalke.
Yeah, true, but they did, they did bring in some really good signings, as well. And I think, Constantin, Nuremberg is a city and this, as a club, is a sleeping giant. We have to remember this is a club that's a 9-time champion.
But they didn't really sign anyone. They signed Gordon from Cologne. Yeah. That's a youth player they know from Hamburg, and they signed Mantegna from Hamburg, but he's now relegated
number 2. They signed Kuba today.
Pretlo will.
They signed Palicio Martinez and who you of course know from Leipzig, right? Who I think is going to have a breakout.
Martinez, he is basically a reserve player at Leipzig.
Absolutely. But I do believe that Kölner knows what he's doing and Nuremberg are stabilized as a club. I have a good feeling about them. I know that the style of football also just suits this league better.
At least someone like Palicio Martinez, he has experienced horrible years after scoring 1,000 goals for the youth teams of Wolfsburg. Crazy 1,000 goals. Look it up. He scored plenty of goals every season. And he's a small player and also a small ball striker. So at least give it to Kölner that he signs someone, someone who has disappointed, but someone who might fit his style. So at least that's kind of where I have to give him credit, because he could have gone for the big guy up front, but he signed Palacio Martinez. It will be an interesting story if he can really recover, because at Leipzig he bombed and played 5th division football for a year or two.
Yeah, he needs to really show that he's the player that he was at youth level.
I love all these predictions. It's great stuff. We'll just have to see who's right when it comes to Nuremberg. Time will tell. But I suppose while Constantin is on here, it would be a shame not to talk a bit more in depth about tactics. And Constantin, we've obviously had a very busy summer of football with the World Cup and whatnot. And it would just be interesting to hear your take on the tactics that are going around these days. What is the current trend? What's going to be the next trend? There's always changes, isn't there? At one stage it was possession football. At one stage it was 4-4-2. What works at the moment, and what's here to stay?
At least looking back at the World Cup, what's really working right now is corner kicks.
Yes, corner kicks are back. Yes,
the English will agree with you.
Of course. They like to just hoover it up there. What's speaking of corner kicks, it's not only about corner kicks, but really what works these days, or what works quite well, is if you detect repetitive movements in the game. It's not corner kicks, free kicks, but it's also build-up plays, goalkeeper passes, stuff that repeats itself over and over again. So you can coach that, you can train that day in, day out, basically. And some coaches do that. They see what can I really teach my players, and what is not possible really teaching them. And Pep Guardiola does it, for instance. He sets up his attacking players, and then he say, okay, you're great enough, go from there, do what you do best. I don't really give you basically something like a plan what you do in the last third of the pitch, but I teach you what you have to do in the first and second third of the pitch. What you have to do to get the ball there, to set up Aguero, to set up Gabriel Jesus, these kind of players, to set up Leroy Sané, and then do your magic, one-on-ones, whatever you want to do. Then it's more about instincts, and it's more about just pure talent. So other coaches do that as well. I mean, corner kicks is also a great thing because you can basically train them for, every day. You can do that all the time, and can repeat it, and can set up blocks, can do different schemes. And so like American football, basically, add a few schemes and you test them and use them, and then, refine them. And the defending sides have really a hard time defending them. So that's one thing. I think in terms of coaching, it really comes down to that many coaches see what you really can learn your players, and what your players can really learn in training, and what they can't, and where it really comes down to talent. Next thing is athleticism. With France winning the World Cup, you can really see that pure athleticism is something has been a bit underestimated, I think, for a few years, because for whatever reason, people thought that like these teams like Barcelona weren't physical and athletic. They were, of course. And Bayern proved it, and Real Madrid proved it, and France did it as well. So in the past few years, you can see that athleticism works quite well, always coupled with the right tactical approach. And that comes, and then we are coming to possession football, because possession football is like, I don't really watch Walking Dead, but I guess it's like a character on Walking Dead. It has died about 15 deaths. Possession football, but it comes back. It's always back. Why? Because possession football doesn't die. Just look at the World Cup. France, there will be a lot of people who claim that France didn't play possession football. Of course they did. But they set it up differently than maybe Barcelona or Manchester City or other teams, or maybe Arsenal back in the day. What you have to do in terms of possession football, and I think a lot of coaches are more practical and have a more practical approach, same with Zinedine Zidane the past few years, is that you have to find out, or basically have to define who are your key players. Is it Mbappe? Okay, what makes Mbappe great? One-on-one situations, isolated. All right, how can I build up plays, possession football, how can I set up them to get him into isolated one-on-one situations? So it's still possession football because you play out from the back. You still Varane and Umtiti. They had a lot of passes, or they had to play a lot of passes. They had ball possession over and over again. But it's different. It's a bit more fast paced than maybe Barcelona or Manchester City. But it doesn't mean it's not possession football. And it doesn't mean you can't also counterattack if you get the chance, and if your pressing is working and you got turnovers. All right, that's fine. But possession football doesn't die. But it changes its face. And it's the same. Even Pep Guardiola, who's like the often claimed like the evil mastermind of possession football, maybe, but I don't know why. But even when he won the English Championship with Manchester City, he changed the ways he let his team play out of the back. That's why Leroy Sané had all these great situations, 1-on-1, 1-on-2. Why? Because he was isolated on the left side. Why was he isolated on the left side? Because they set it up that way. Because Delph moved inside, and they basically let the ball circulate on the right, and then play a fast or a quick pass to Leroy Sané, and then he was isolated. The isolation is one of the key things you see these days, because if you don't isolate your great dribblers, they don't really have the chance to get in these one-on-one situations, because it's just too packed. Most of the teams are too compact these days. They switched sides when you're defending, so you need to set up something. as I said, with Mbappe or maybe with Sané. So possession football doesn't die, but it changes its face. And if Spain goes out after they fire Lopetegui one day before the World Cup starts, that's not really an argument for possession football dying. Same with Germany, because Germany made one crucial mistake. I mean, Manu mentioned that maybe they should have switched to a 3-5-2. Maybe that's one thing. Or they should have just have one pure holding midfielder, because all the great possession teams had one. You know, Sergio Busquets, for instance.
Oh, Mats Hummels just needs to head home that one ball.
Of course. But then they would have been beaten decisively by Brazil.
I don't think so.
Fine.
I saw Brazil at this World Cup. I don't think they would have beaten any of the big teams. But you're quite right. I think that possession football isn't that. I think it's just the way that we perceive it is different.
I don't know. I talked about Rudy, by the way. When Germany had Rudy on the pitch for 25 minutes against Sweden, it was the best 25 minutes of a German team in a long time. But you're obviously right. And I don't know why people wish possession football to die. I don't know. Don't they like sophisticated approaches to the game? I mean, it's the same. Like, is only counter pressing and transition attacking like entertaining? I don't think so. I mean, there are different styles of football entertaining. And while I find it so intriguing that Pep Guardiola and that a few other coaches right now are changing the way possession football is played, while someone like Jurgen Klopp also tries to change the way his style of football, the counter-pressing, high-volume style, because he mixes in a few other elements. He mixes in a more ball-playing midfield, a more creative midfield. That's why they signed Naby Keita. That's why they signed, help me out, Fabinho. So, they also try to mix it up a bit. But in terms of possession football, it has started, I think, 2 years ago, and we will see, the result this year and next year, I think, because Real Madrid won't win the, Champions League again, because I think this year will be again a more of a pure possession, team. More possession style football team, whatever. Yeah, that's a weird word, right?
And that's, I think, Constantin, I think that's why Dortmund will have a good chance of winning the title. Because, I mean, Favre likes to play that kind of football, doesn't he? So I think that's going to be a really interesting one to watch.
He at least likes to mix things up a bit.
Yeah.
Some people say he's a pure pressing, coach, but he isn't. He's not. Especially now he's at Dortmund. And maybe in a few phases during his stint at Gladbach, he was more of a pure pressing coach, but obviously that's not the case when he coaches a team like Dortmund. And what he likes to do is also mix things up in another way. He wants to have basically secured passing in his team's half. That means they have two center backs, two midfielders, two deeply positioned fullbacks. So six players who are basically securing the ball, and then when the transition, when the ball is moved to Royce, to Götze, to Philip or Sancho, then it gets really fast. Suddenly they speed up and it gets really fast. That's what Favre tries to do. So he plays possession football in a completely different way again. A little bit more like maybe France did at the World Cup.
Yeah.
So that's what's so interesting about it.
Constantin, I think that then is going to have to bring us to our final topic. And we're going to have to gloss over this fairly quickly, the three of us, I think, because we're a bit short on time. But Constantin, give us your prediction, your league prediction. We want from first to very last.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I think Borussia Dortmund will win. So I got Dortmund, Bayern Munich's runner-up. Bayer Leverkusen third, Schalke fourth, Hoffenheim fifth, Wolfsburg sixth, Leipzig seventh, Stuttgart eighth. Bremen eighth, Stuttgart nine, Gladbach 10, Frankfurt 11, Mainz 12, Düsseldorf 13th, Augsburg 14th, Hertha 15th, Nuremberg 16th, Freiburg and Hannover will go down.
Ooh.
Ho. And Manu, well, the floor is yours, as I said.
So I got, yes, bring it out, Bryce. Champion will be Bayer Leverkusen. Second will be Dortmund. Third will be Bayern. Fourth will be Hoffenheim. Again, that top four, I'm not 100% sure that's how it's actually going to end, because I think it's going to be super tight but that's just how I have it down at this very moment.
No excuses.
No excuses. No, I said it on, it's on record. I have Leipzig as 5th, Schalke is 6th, Bremen is 7th, Mainz 8th, Gladbach 9th, Wolfsburg 10th, Berlin 11th, Stuttgart 12th, Frankfurt 13th, Nuremberg 14th, Freiburg 15th, Hannover 16th, Augsburg 17th, and Düsseldorf finishing last.
Augsburg 17th. What do you like? I suppose I better have my rundown now. But what I know, I'm going to say Bayern to win. How awful of me. But then I'm going to say Leverkusen in 2nd, Dortmund 3rd, Hoffenheim 4th, Schalke 5th, RB Leipzig 6th, 7th Gladbach, 8th Mainz, 9th Augsburg, yes, not 17th, Eintracht Frankfurt 10th, Stuttgart 11th, Werder Bremen 12th, Düsseldorf 13th, Wolfsburg 14th, 15th Hertha Berlin, 16th Freiburg will play Holstein Kiel in the playoff final, or the relegation final, and then 17th Nuremberg and 18th Hanover. So there you go, fellas.
Are you suggesting I'm biased, Bryce? I'm not at all.
I have suggested that for 2 years now, but you know, you might be on to something. But anyway, guys, we have talked enough. I think we've discussed just about everything today. Constantin, it has been fantastic to have you on. I can listen to you talk about tactics all day long, but unfortunately we've just ran a bit short on time. Where can people find you on the likes of Twitter, or what have you got going on coming up that you'd like to draw people's attention to?
Yeah, so obviously, they can find me on Twitter at cc_Eckner. So that's that thing. I mean, they can check out Spielverlagerung.com, or the people who can comprehend German, they can also check out Spielverlagerung.de. And yeah, that's about it right now. Just check out our articles. I mean, the Bundesliga season is starting in a few days, and then we will have 4 more articles on there, because it was a bit quiet after the World Cup, but that will change, obviously.
And what is your Twitter handle there?
All right, our Spielverlagerung at Spielverkom.
Oh, brilliant! Definitely head over there, people, and give Constantin a follow as well. Plenty of awesome content. Manu, what have you got going on this week apart from not being able to leave the house?
Yeah, being confined to the house means that I finished all the Champions League playoff previews. They're on footballgrad.com. I finished part 1 of the Bundesliga preview. That's on fußballstadt.com. And then, part 2 will be out, I guess, by the time this podcast comes out. Part 3 will be out on Wednesday. And then I'm doing a news segment on prosoccerusa.com. There's of course the page I cover the White Cups for, but because of the big Alphonso Davies move and because of so many US players and in the future Canadian players playing in the Bundesliga, we're going to do North Americans abroad coming up, and that first article will be coming out this week, which will be a little bit of a preview on what the North American players can expect in the upcoming Bundesliga year.
Fantastic. It all sounds very interesting. You guys are both very busy. And yes, if you need any other articles to read up on or previews, there's always plenty at Football Grad Live on Twitter. Head over that way. Guys, thanks very much for tuning in this week. As always, I've been your host, Bryce Dunn. You can find me on Twitter at BryceDunn11. And that more or less does it. Yes, bring on the football. The Bundesliga starts again this weekend. Hopefully you've enjoyed the preview, and we hope that you enjoy the games even more. Auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, dich abzuholen.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.